When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying. Or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Behind the Human. I'm your host, Mark Champagne. It's my job to unpack mental fitness practices and stories of people living at the top of their game, personally and professionally. And today I'm super excited. Someone I've had in my ear for many weeks now, since first coming across his music, Mitch Zorn, who is a singer, songwriter, and I think going to be a serious household name very soon in the country music space. Also a mental health advocate and just genuinely good human being. So Mitch, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I wouldn't say I'm at the top of my game right now. I'm fighting a cold, but we're here. I'm excited.
Well, will you there?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Who are you? Like, how would you define yourself as the Mitch today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from a small town. I would say I'm a small town kid, blue collar kid. I'm a tradesman. I was a tradesman before I was a musician. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a boyfriend. I'm a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats, man, for sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about, you have a really interesting story. I heard this through, a lot of people have heard this song, Home. That's what first made me addicted to you in a
Yeah.
healthy way, of course,
Yeah,
Mitch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Love it.
But some of the lyrics in that song, you can get a bit of a taste of some of your story of I think balancing, obviously the passion for music and writing songs and having a career in music, but then also from what I got out of it, like kind of being realistic of the start as well. And I think you're working in oil and gas in Texas, right? As an electrician, I believe,
Yep.
for several years, kind of like 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and writing music in between and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How did all of that come to be? Like, what kind of questions were you asking to set up that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, without going all the way back and just walking you through my entire life story, I
Sure.
grew up in a musical family, so early on, like, music wasn't something I really looked at as a professional option or as an option for my job. It was just a deep passion of mine. My dad's a singer, my grandparents are singers, and it was always just in the
Yeah.
household and always had guitars around.
Was
My
that
dad
their
was in a
jobs,
band.
though?
No,
Your dad, like
dad
no, okay.
worked. Yeah, but yeah, he was, also in the trades, but he was in a band, a
Okay.
blues and country band when I was little, so I was kinda always sitting in with them and touring around playing, weddings and festivals and, um, yeah, and then it kinda progressed from there, but that was one thing my dad always said was like, "I'll support you in whatever you do, but you just gotta be, mindful that you have to support yourself too financially and, you know, the real world, there's bills to pay," and so I had to kind of figure out how I was gonna do that, and I wanted to obviously, I'm Canadian, so I wanted to go to Nashville, and you can't just pick up a job down in Nashville, so I was kinda trying to figure out my way
Yeah.
around that, and I stumbled on the oil and gas industry because of the shift work. You get a lot of time off, if you're, willing to go and work remotely and work in the camps, and so I was a carpenter first. I feel like I'm gonna start rambling here, but yeah, I was a carpenter first in high school. I did half the apprenticeship, and then I started running heavy equipment when I graduated, and then stumbled into, I needed a more stable career and a better wage, so I decided to go to school to be an electrician, with the
Mm.
with the motivation that it was gonna get me work on the road and I could just kind of fly to Nashville whenever I had the time off, so, yeah, I kinda
But
just
that was the
chased that.
background
Yeah,
motivation, right? Was
yeah,
the
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
music was always there.
It was all I think it's like every decision I think I've made in the last 12 years has been for the sake of my music and my music career, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So what was it like then? I mean, I'm projecting obviously, but I can
Mhm.
of course there's benefits of the fact that there's some cash flow coming in. I mean, I think we all get that. But was
Yeah.
it like 4 weeks of, "Oh man, like I can't wait for those 2 weeks back in Nashville?" Like how were you mentally handling that whole situation?
Yeah, I think it was always kinda like this idea that you had to give to receive kinda thing, and you had to work for
Yeah.
I grew up in a that's the environment I grew up in is you work for the things you get, and that's how I was raised, and, when I was out there, like you said, in Texas, you're in 40-degree heat, working 14 hours a day, it's not the greatest environment in the world, but you just kinda put your head down and do it, and I'm grateful that I was raised to have a good work ethic first, and that was something that was very important in my family and in my household, so, yeah, I was kinda that was, the way to kinda just shut off everything else, just get to work, and then get to Nashville and write some songs.
So what'd that look like when you're in Nashville and stuff? Like what just because most of us I mean, I've been to Nashville once, actually. My wife and I went last year for the first time, and it's pretty magical as a,
Yeah,
you just for me at least, so you just kinda hear what Nashville's all about, but then once you're there, as you know, it's like, whoa, it's just music everywhere, like, you can
yeah,
feel the
yeah,
industry of it. So, as
yeah.
someone that is directly in it and coming in for 2 weeks and then out and then back and so forth and kind of really trying to fire up a career. Like, what were you doing? Like, what do those 2 weeks look like for someone like yourself back in those days?
Yeah, I think I mean, it started it's looked a lot it's looked like a lot of different things, but early on, like, I didn't know anybody in Nashville, so when I went there, it was just me and my dreams pretty much, you know what I mean? Like, I knew
Yeah.
nobody, didn't know where to go, I just knew that that was the place to be, that was the mecca, as you will, and, um, I met through a friend of mine in Calgary, is a whole other story, a buddy that ended up being, like, a mentor to me and a good friend to me in Nashville, he's a guitar player, by the name of Corey
Mm.
Congilio, very well-respected musician in the city there, and he kinda just took me under the wing, and I wanted to record some songs, and he kinda just like, I remember the first week I got there, he picked me up and kinda just drove me around to all the publishing houses and all the old
Yeah.
studios and down Broadway and, took me to the Country Music Hall of Fame and just kinda showed me the history of it all, and, um, he was very instrumental in, like, the beginning of my relationship with Nashville and with music, and early on back in those days, like I said, I was just trying to figure it out. I was like, I'm a daydreamer in a sense, I wasn't thinking about it from a business stance. I wasn't thinking about it from how do I sell this? I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to be in the space and see, the guys that I've looked up to forever, what they do and how they do it, how they write songs. And I just wanted to be good. It was a craft thing for me. I just wanted to be good at
Yeah.
my craft, and I wanted to be a songwriter, and everything else that comes with that was, obviously something I was working toward, but yeah, in those days, it was just I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to be in the space, and, I worked and as far as the work part of it goes, I worked in so many different places, Alberta, BC, Texas, and, um, yeah, and they've all kinda led me to the same place, so
I
grateful.
wonder though, Mitch, like, I think it's probably there's you may have thought about this before, but just the fact that you were raised in a certain way with that work ethic and you had that job, so it wasn't this thing of like, I have to come here and, like, scrape the pennies and,
Yeah,
I feel like it'd be a different mindset, right? It
yeah,
almost it almost allowed you to go in and be like, Yeah, let's learn. Let's
Yeah.
this is the place, but, at least I'm not worrying about bills right now, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah, that's
okay.
exactly it. Because I've seen a lot of musicians over the years that like, Nashville's a hard one, man. It's the best
Yeah,
musicians on the planet, the best country musicians on the planet, all tucked into one place, and they all want the same thing. They all wanna succeed, they
yeah,
all wanna climb the ladder, and it's like, there's only so many opportunities to go around, so it's unrealistic to think that at the very beginning, you're just gonna quit your job, move there, and start making money playing music. Like, you can't do it, there's a lot of I don't wanna say weekend warriors, that has a negative connotation to it, but just the people that do the Broadway scene play shows there every night in the bars and,
yeah,
make tips and make less than a livable wage, and, yeah, I just knew that it was a long run thing for me, like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, whether it's a career doing it or, just my passion in doing it,
yeah,
so I kinda had to figure out a way to support myself, that
sure.
was the way I always looked at it.
Did you ever land either as a performer or even just a guest at, and I only know this place because I was there, but the famous Bluebird Cafe?
Mm. No, I've actually never been there, like, in all the times I've
No way!
yeah, yeah, I swear to God, like, and I know the history and, um,
Yeah,
obviously it's a full of the best songwriters in the world are playing rounds there, and it's something I've always wanted to do, but it's just never really lined up for whatever reason, but yeah, no, I actually just did it's called the Blue Jays Sessions. I played at the CCMAs, and they kinda set it up the same way, so it's like a little room, and they got all the
cool.
songwriters around each other, facing each other, and everybody's just in there listening, so it's kind of a similar thing, but I love it. I
Yeah.
love that dynamic, the intimate setting for sure. It's something I would love to do.
It's so special. I mean, we
Yeah.
just lucked out when we were there because I mean, there was a few people that were asking for suggestions and like, "Hey, where do we need to go? What do we need to see?" And like, "Oh, you should
Yeah.
try, see if you can get in over there." And like,
Yeah.
everyone said the same thing. Like, you're not gonna. There's no way you're gonna get in. Like, people,
Yeah.
there's books out for
Lined up down the road.
weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
and, it was, like, day of, so we're like, "Wow, we'll roll up, see what we can do," and I don't know how it happened, but, like, we were in that kinda famous line where we were the last 2 people before they cut it off,
Yeah.
and we got in, and it was like,
Yeah.
it's wow, you start then I'm research like, I didn't know all of the history, but you
Yeah.
start researching all of this, and like, holy smokes, like, there's a
Yeah.
lot
It
of
goes
people's careers that started in this little room.
yeah. Bluebird
Right?
goes
You
way
turn the
back.
lights on in there, like, it's
Mm.
a whole other it looks like a freaking deli or something, like, drop
Yeah.
ceiling, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
That's
hilarious.
funny. Such a funny, like, because you think of all these places like the Bluebird and Tootsie's and the Ryman and in your mind, when you haven't been there, you think they're like you think about the movies, right? Like, it's this
Yeah.
grandiose, like and then you get there and you're like, "Oh, these are just, like, old shitty bars," excuse my language, that they just
Yeah.
turned into, venues and that just created history over time. It's so funny.
It's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
So cool. So where
awesome.
I guess, what are some of the inflection points, or what have those points been? Oh, I mean, we talked a little bit, of course, of you, coming to Nashville and soaking up, learning, and so forth, writing songs, creating music. Um I mentioned some, home, obviously, you've got the latest one, which I'm really on repeat. Was it 10 Days in July? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, 10 Day that one's
yeah.
so good as well.
Thank you,
Like,
man.
where are you at right now? And I guess what were some of the unlocks?
Um, yeah, I I I I don't know, it's funny, like so I chased that for years. I was in Nashville working on the road, and I hadn't seen my family in forever, and it was through COVID, so I was stuck down there for a while, blah, 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 and, um, I was taking a break from music. When I moved back to Canada, it was the winter of 2021, and I was taking a step back on the professional side of it.
Mm,
I'll write forever, but, um, I was just kinda playing shows just for fun. I wasn't really pursuing anything, chasing anything, and I booked a show at the Roxy in Vancouver on the Roxy Sunday, and I was playing for, like, 10 people or something. I was opening up for a buddy of mine, and their DJ happened to be married to a girl who was the country director for 604 Records, the label I'm with, and they heard me and just like your stereotypical kind of discovered me in a bar kind of thing.
Yeah. See, this is the
And then I
bluebird
got
story.
signed and then yeah, and then I got exactly. And then I got signed and then I was like, oh, I guess I'm back in it. You know what I mean? So um yeah, now it's kind of just been the last year of just like really pushing and the fire's kind of been reignited and and I'm just meeting all the right people. I feel like you get introduced to guys like Steve Cody and you know that like you have a good shot at this with the right people around you. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of my, you know, I'm just kind of taking it as it comes, you know what I mean? Obviously I have dreams and I have goals and I have things I want to
Yeah.
accomplish in the next few years, but at the very same time I'm still very much taking it like right here right now, just in one step ahead. And yeah, so right now we're just working on putting songs out. We worked on an album in the last couple of years, Home, 10 Days in July, and 8 other songs. So now we're just kind of working on rolling those out and building the right
Mhm.
team to kind of elevate the whole thing. So
A couple questions, just
yeah.
selfishly. When's do we know when this album's gonna drop? Are we
No,
allowed to talk about
yeah,
that?
yeah, I'm not even gatekeeping that. I have no idea. I got a couple more singles I want to put out, and radio's a funny thing. Like, there's only so many people that they can play on the radio, and there's so only I'm the new kid on the block. You kind of got to wait your turn, so you can't service 10 songs to the radio in 1 year, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah, we're just kind of trying to work out which ones I think are going to go to radio and kind of build the schedule out around that. And we got 2 or 3 more singles, and then it'll be the album. So I think probably, I don't know, a year. I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe next
Okay.
month. I don't know. I don't know. See. Yeah.
See see what happens. I mean, in the
Yeah.
meantime, at least we're getting music, and I'm also seeing
That's
you
right.
pop up on, at least in the, like, Apple Music, Spotify world of kind of new artists and hit, you know the titles. I think you were even one of the cover photos for one of those
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
which has gotta feel pretty good.
Yeah. It's cool. So in the radio world, there's for new artists like guys like me who aren't regularly played in rotation, there's emerging artist programs that the big companies run to kind of spotlight new artists and get them
Yeah.
kind of started in the game. And there's 4 big ones. There's iHeartRadio, Stingray Radio, Pure Country, and Acadia. And they kind of run all the country stations across the country. And they all have these programs and,
Mhm.
in the same 2 months, I got all 4 of those programs, which is, like, in from what I
Yes.
understand, unheard of. So it's been such a blessing, and like you said, the DSP guys, Apple, Amazon, Spotify have been so good to me, putting me on playlists, and, um, Amazon gave me the cover of Breakthrough Country for this single, and George from Apple gave me the cover of Canada's Country for Apple on the last single, so it's just been nothing but positivity. It's been a good
Oh, that's
response,
awesome.
which feels great because like, you write these songs and you don't know like, obviously, you think they're good, but you don't know how people are
Yeah.
gonna respond to them, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I heard
Yeah.
I think this was another it might have been an interview on Pure Country, actually. I was in preparation for this, like,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, I think even Home, like, you didn't really pick that one. Wasn't it the team? It was like, "Oh, you need to release this," or something? Like,
Yeah, in a sense, that song I wrote 8 years ago in Nashville, like, when
no
I was living
kidding.
yeah, yeah, when I was living down in the States, and it was kinda just tucked in my voice notes, and like, don't get me wrong, I've always thought it was a great song, I always thought it was an amazing song, but, like, I just have a vision of what I wanted my brand to be, and that has changed over the years, and it changes
Yeah.
continuously, but, um, yeah, it just didn't match for whatever reason until now, and, with the support I've been getting from radio and all that, it was kinda just made sense, it was a good radio song, I think it's a great, um, melodic country song, and it was actually my, sister-in-law at the time was like, "You need to record this, you need to put this out, you need to put this out." She was just kinda giving me the gears constantly about it, so I was like, "Alright," so I started playing it out, and people were like, "Yeah, you gotta record that, you gotta record that," and, I ended up
Yeah.
recording it, and then, yeah, it was kinda came down to a few songs that we were kinda push for the radio push, and that was the one we landed on, And it's you like in preparation to getting played on the radio and getting these programs, like, and being with a label who have a bunch of connections and a bunch of relationships, you just start sending the songs out and see which ones people react to and which ones people enjoy. And that one just happened to be one that everybody kind of simultaneously got on board with. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I feel that. I mean, it's early, I know right now, but I don't know. I'm only a listener, obviously, but
Mhm.
like you can tell some songs. Like there's like something about it that you're like, that's going to be played a lot. And I feel the same way with 10 Days in July. It's like it's that one's on repeat for me as well. It's
Awesome.
like
Well, I really
it's got that
appreciate that.
same characteristic,
Yeah.
whatever that
It's
is. I don't know what the hell that is, but
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it's like kinda like this they always talk about and I'm not saying that I have this, but they always talk about, like, the it factor, right? And you can never
yeah,
really characterize it, and you don't really know how to describe what it is, and I'm not saying that that's what I have, but with songs like that, it's like
it's okay. I know you and
yeah,
I are
yeah,
both Canadian, but you can say
yeah,
it factor.
yeah.
This is going out to the
Yeah,
rest of the world too.
I appreciate it. No, I feel like I'm humble to a fault at times. It
Yeah.
gets me in trouble, but, um, yeah, and then but with songs like that, on the songwriting side of it, like, you write and you write and you write and you write and you write, and you come up with songs constantly, and every once in a while, like, you'll get one that's has that thing, and I don't know what it is either, like, it's obviously a great melody, and, obviously, honesty is a big factor for me and what makes a song connect with people, and um, but yeah, but you don't know. You have no idea. Like to this day, I've written 1,000 songs. I have no idea if the next one's gonna have that thing. And it
Yeah.
just happens that you try to put an album together with songs that have that thing. And like, these songs have been this album's been in the works for a lot of years now, and I've dumbed it down from like 70 songs to the 10 songs that you're gonna see. So I hope I made the right pick. And
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, no, it's it's a weird thing. Like song choice is such a hard thing because you don't know what people are gonna like, and you don't know
Yeah.
but I think there are um, some pillars that don't miss, like honesty
Yeah.
and yeah, I'll leave it at that for sure.
But I feel like that like, it's almost full circle to kinda how we opened the conversation, like, the you can't have the it factor song if you don't have songs, and you've gotta put in the work to get, the 1,000 songs, right? Like, so forget
100%.
music, but I mean, like, that again, that work ethic that you were raised with,
Yeah,
put in the work, like, something's gonna come out of that. I mean, we always
yeah,
have, like, these expectations, and timelines of things, and that doesn't
yeah,
always come to fruition, but
yeah,
on my side as
seldom.
well, it's like, keep putting the boots on and something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I read a book by a guy named Stephen Pressfield one time, and I can't remember.
Yeah.
I always get these 2 books mixed up. There's The War of Art and there's The Art of War. Which one's
Ste
the
I don't know, but I know what
anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
Steven
so
Pressfield, yeah.
yeah, The War of Art, and he just talks about that same thing. He's just like, as a creative person and as an artist and as somebody who's trying to create something for people to connect to online or whatever, like, it's just reps. You just sit down and do it. Like, I'm still to this day, I'll write 10 songs, only one of them's gonna be good, you know what I mean? You just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Yeah,
The War of Art, that's the it's that. I
yeah,
typed in The Art of War, and it's not, it's The War of Art.
yeah,
Break through the
yeah,
blocks and win your inner creative battles. Boom,
yeah,
Steven Pressfield. Well, let's talk a
yeah.
little bit more about your flow, your process, like, what works for you? Like, when you're writing songs, and even going back to those Nashville days, like, what did that look like for you? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning of a writing day, it is just you sit down and just start doing it, but, like, I mean I guess if I can just lay it out for you, I'll sit down and I got my guitar, I got a piano, and I'll just start playing chords and just try to start humming melodies. Like, I'm not saying
Mm,
words at this point. I'm just kinda humming and humming until you find something that sparks you and kinda gets you going. And within that, like, these days, because you have to evolve and you have to, like, change and you have to continuously be striving to doing something different so that it stays fresh. And so for me, I have to listen to new music. I have to listen to people that I am inspired by, that I think are great artists. And that's kind of you get into a gray area there because you don't want to just rip off these guys' art.
Yeah.
But there's only so
But
many
all of it's
notes
coming from
there's
somewhere.
yeah,
Exactly.
there's only so many notes. So it's like, yeah, I just try to find inspiration within the people that I enjoy listening to, and then kind of just take my own spin on it is the way I look at it. And then um, another book I read said that like you just got to pay attention. So like as far as the lyrical side of it, a lot of it for me is having notes and paying attention to the world around me in my day to day and conversations I
Mm,
have. And just like when people say something that sounds cool, I'll write it down. Or when I see something out in the world, I write it down. Or when a title comes to me, I write it down. And, and then I have, a, a, a piggy bank of things to draw from, you know what I
yeah.
mean? And, and then you just combine those two things. You just try to hammer out a melody that you like, and then hopefully it matches a particular story that you've half written in your voice notes, and just go
And
from
come back
there.
to it.
And yeah, yeah. And a big part of it too is like where I'm at in my life plays a big role in it, like emotionally, stress level wise. Like obviously if you're emotionally charged, you have something to say and you have something to get out. But at the very same time, if you're too over emotionally charged or you're stressed out, it's hard to do anything. So yeah,
Yeah.
find that good balance between the two.
So what do you I have so many questions. I mean, 'cause
Yeah,
on
please.
one side, I mean, I can't relate to writing music, but I can relate to the fine balance of, like, let's just call it consumption and, like, inspiration then because I wrote a book, so for me, it was like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, at one point and I can't explain what it is, but at one point, I'm like, "I feel like I've got enough, like, now I need to just,
Yeah,
like, create," right?
yeah.
Um, is there anything in your world that like, are you able to explain that? Is there a certain, like, sign that you get? You're like, "Okay, now it's time to go," or and I guess or, like, do you force yourself to write kind of every day or a certain cadence, or is it like, okay, now it's here and we're gonna go for it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I do try to just force myself to sit down and do it and stay excuse me. And it's just excuse me. And just stay in it. I force myself to,
Yeah.
continue listening to new music and just stay in it. But at the same time, I also know like when to take a break. I also know when it's
Mm,
important to step away from it and come at it with fresh eyes. Like I'll
yeah.
write and write and write. I go into writing modes, and then I'll take like, sometimes I'll take a month off and I won't pick up my guitar at all. And I'll just kind of just step away from it so that I can come back to it with fresh eyes. But yeah, more often than not, I'm just trying to stay in it and just stay
Yeah.
motivated because, like, I do believe that the inspiration kind of drops out of the sky. You always talk about the muse and the inspiration, but I don't think you can get that without sitting down and trying to get to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just
Yeah.
gonna fall out of the sky, and you're not just gonna never try. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So
that's like
yeah, it's
the
a little bit of both.
Hollywood
It's just a
version,
little bit of both. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
"Oh, yeah,
It's just
everything."
like,
I remember thinking at one point or someone asked me when I was on, like, the publication tour for the book, it's like,
yeah,
"Oh, was it just you get up every day and just write and flow?" And, like, no, actually, kinda like you, I'm like, I had a
yeah,
job kind of all day, and at 5:30 in the
yeah,
morning, I was writing the first draft of the book for a
yeah,
couple hours for, like, a year, you know? And not every morning felt great.
exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
What
But it's
practices
yeah, it's like the
help go ahead, go ahead.
romanticized sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 please continue.
I'll go. Yeah, I was just gonna say, but like you were saying, like the Hollywood kind of romanticized version of that is like you look at like Bob Dylan and these, or you talk about
Yeah,
Paul McCartney waking up in the middle of the night and writing yesterday. It's like I think that does happen. Like after you get so far down the rabbit hole of just working on it every day, then you do start to get rewarded for that. But like I don't think that I mean, forgive me, Bob Dylan, but I don't think that it's some like mystical connection to the ether, you know what I mean? And it just
yeah.
falls into your lap. I think there's has to be a version of of practicality in it that you just work, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and the other
Yeah.
thing is just like we all have our own story. I mean, especially in today's like social media world, it's so easy to fall down this like comparison game and whatnot. Even though we know that
Yeah.
those are like the highlights of people's lives, it's still we get kind of sucked in. And I feel like I sense this from you, like you've got this kind of grounding presence, like what you were saying, like it's like you're on the bull, you're in it for the ride right now. I mean, there's a team
Mhm.
now and whatnot, and like who knows what's gonna happen. But it seems like you're trying to enjoy, as much of it as
Yeah.
you can and see where it goes, but you're putting in the work, right? And like that's your
Yeah.
story. And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be anything more or anything less.
No, everybody's story's different, and I think one thing people do get hung up with is, like, especially with social media and everything, it's like, you look at these people that you admire in your spaces, like, for me, it's, big country artists who seem to have it all, you know what I mean? I think that all of us go through that, like, at whatever level, the level I'm at to the level of being the biggest artist in the planet, like, you're always I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but, like, do you feel that way? Like, I'm always
Yeah.
fighting with the comparison thing. I'm always fighting with, like, my idea of what people think of me and, like, their perception of what I'm doing, and am I doing it the right way? Am I good enough? Am I interesting enough? Am I funny enough? Am I a good enough performer? Am I, like, built for it? You know what I mean? Like, do you go through that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
think I think it's like a real small percentage of people that don't go through that, and maybe they're even
yeah,
lying if they're not. I find what
yeah.
has changed though, especially, focusing more and more on like mental fitness and some of these practices to help calm the mind and whatnot, is that I catch myself more often now. It's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
you're doing it." Like, you're looking like you're comparing yourself to Tim Ferriss as a podcaster or something. You're like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, it's not the same thing." Like,
no,
so in that sense, it's been nice to okay, well, so you caught yourself and then you don't keep looping, right? And
yeah,
like, let's just release that and get and refocus back to like whatever the hell I'm trying to do or whatever I was working on.
yeah, and
What works
I
for you?
I'm still figuring it out, man, because and
Okay.
I was gonna ask you the same thing because you talk about, like, mental fitness and having tools, and I've been curious, and I really do wanna pick your brain about this because I feel like I'm right in the middle of that struggle, like,
Mm,
I mean, obviously, I think I've been in that my whole life, but, like, right now with everything that's happening and people are starting to know who I am within the industry circles, and it's like I have such a problem with it, like, I struggle so much with catching it, like, I'm good about trying to catch it and setting myself up mentally to be prepared for those moments, but then when they come, it's like, I don't know how to stop and be present, and, like, in a lot of these circles, like, even with Steve, and it's like, you're trying to obviously sell a product, but you're trying to sell yourself as a person too and be
yeah.
liked and be, friends with people, and it's like, I don't I wish I could just sit and have a conversation and think about what the person's saying and then my views on that and have a conversation. But a lot of times I'm like thinking about what I sound like when I'm talking versus what I'm actually trying to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have
Interesting.
such a hard time with it. I have such a hard time with it.
Well, so I'll suggest a couple things. I mean, I'm not I can
Yeah,
just
please, please.
share some of
I
the
love it.
tools at least that I've seen come across the show and whatnot and through this work. But one question, like when you're performing and the guitar's in your hand, what's that like? Do you are you just like fully in it and like in the zone and not thinking about like how you sound and whatnot?
Yeah, I think when I'm in the song, when I'm singing the song, I know I'm confident in my ability to connect with people and get their attention, and, um, I always, feel like when I start singing that people connect. I feel like people do connect to the words that I say and the way I write, and I do think people are fans of me, so when I'm in it, like, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
on top of the world in a lot of spaces, but the big thing for me as a performer is the in between the songs, the banter, the talking, the showing the human side of that's not just an entertainer and a performer, that I struggle
Yeah.
with because I'm like, I'm like trying to rehearse things to say because I don't want to get caught in the moment being awkward or quiet or too scared looking, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
And then but then, like, I get video back, like, the Blue Jay sessions was a good example. I'll get video back and I'll see it, and I'm like, "Oh, well, that was great." Like, I don't know what I was so worried about. Like, I look confident and everything's seemingly fine, but, like, in the moment, I'm just reeling about it, you know what I mean? So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
both. It's both.
yeah. But I find like this is the reason I asked that is I suspected you were going to say that, and
Yeah.
at least I see. I mean, I can't. The only thing I can compare that to in my world is like speaking in front of large crowds about mental fitness and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I still get nervous, obviously, like a healthy level of nerves. But
Mm,
it's I feel like it's no different than like you put in all the reps in terms of writing songs and playing music. Like that's the training, right? Then like when you're on
yeah.
stage, you're just doing your thing. And now
Yeah.
this whole new world of all these meetings and like that's just new stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like if there's a way to kind of remind yourself of, yeah, I've done this before in other situations, specifically
Mhm.
with performing and whatnot. And a
Mhm.
lot of those people probably in the room actually, even though they're in the industry, like would like buckle on a stage with a
Mhm.
guitar in their hand. Like that's not their thing,
Exactly.
right?
For sure.
And like just remembering that, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, like that's my sweet spot. And then as for the in between the songs, I don't know, as a consumer of that, if I'm putting myself in the audience of one of your concerts, like I'd love to just see the real you and be like,
Yeah.
saying like, "Oh, this was a bit awkward. Like, I don't know what to say right
Yeah.
now." Like, just
Yeah.
I feel like people would
Oh,
laugh, be like, "Yeah," because that's probably how we would feel too, you know?
yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Like, I think we overthink it a lot. I mean, obviously we do, right?
Yeah, of
But
course.
yeah, no, I think that's the thing, right? But you're always wondering, like, am I interesting enough? Am I funny enough? And I think it goes beyond performing. Like, for me, I'm confident in who I am, and like, I really do like a lot of things about me, but obviously I'm insecure, like, in a lot of ways. And so I think it's hard to kinda get up there and not put the insecurity stuff first and just be like,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, in this setting, like, if you and me, Mark, were sitting camera off in a backyard, I'm fully confident I'd win you over, we'd be friends, we'd have a great conversation," and we're having a great conversation now,
Yeah,
don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but, um, I just I'm trying to figure out how to get that to translate because 'cause I'm like, I love having conversations. I love this.
Yeah.
I love connecting with people, you know what I mean? And to
Yeah.
kinda figure out a way to bring that on stage is kind of my challenge right now.
Yeah.
And that's the
Well,
way I
you
look
can
at all
borrow
this
some
stuff. It's like yeah,
Yeah, well, you can just
it's
you
not
can borrow stuff that athletes do, right? Like it's the
yeah,
visualization stuff, right?
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
before a concert or something like that. Again, like I think your set list and all that stuff you've got pretty dialed, but
yeah,
it's like closing your eyes and like just like walking through the performance
yeah.
and feeling like actually feeling the emotions of that awkwardness in between and kind of putting yourself in like, well, that's that's what I'm feeling right now, but like how do I want that to play out?
Yeah,
Right? And then it
yeah.
becomes because between that and I think just, like, consistently checking in with yourself, whether that's, like, a
Mhm,
journaling practice or something in the morning, first thing when you get up, be like, "How am I
mhm,
feeling today? Like, what's going on?" Like, that's the stuff that I feel and I'm guilty of this, but the more we do that, then the more coming back to your point, like, when you're in those meetings, you'll catch it, right away
mhm,
because you're
mhm.
training yourself in other environments to just check in with, like, "Hey, I'm feeling a bit off here," or, "I'm feeling
Yeah,
fantastic." I'm like, "Why?"
yeah,
You know?
yeah. Yeah, and it's like you catch these, like, emotional waves and these, like, emotional charges, not, like, overwhelmingly emotional charges, but just, like, little sparks of emotional, um, instability. For me, it's like I feel good in a lot of certain circles with friends, with people I'm comfortable with, where I can show up as the best version of myself. And to, like you
Yeah,
said, the preparation part of just, like, trying to remind yourself enough that you can show up in every situation like that. And I think you'll never
yeah,
perfect that. Like, you're always gonna be nervous. You're
yeah,
always gonna be, it's never gonna be perfect. Like, nothing is ever gonna be
No.
perfect, I think, I'm pretty sure. But, like, I
Well,
know how I feel
yeah.
when I'm feeling perfect, you know what I mean? And I feel like I can riff and I'm like, the jokes are coming and I'm saying the things that I want to say. I'm not just saying the things that I think would sound cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And showing up in all situations like that is a tough one, but yeah.
Oh, for sure. But I think they're like I can't I saw this recently. Someone was either it was an article about Oprah or she was talking about this. She's obviously like, interviewed so many people.
Yeah.
And she shared this thing that, like, at the end of essentially 90+% of all her interviews, the guests always kind of like, soon as the camera cuts, they always, like, lean over and be like, "Was that okay?" Like,
Yeah.
everyone has that
Yeah.
and I just found, like, who's been on her show. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh,
The best
interesting."
of the
We're all
best.
the
Yeah.
same. We
Yeah.
just wanna
Yeah.
do good.
Well, we just wanna be like yeah, we just exactly, that's it, dude. We just wanna do good, whatever that means, you know what I mean? Like, whether
Yeah,
it's a relationship or whether it's a pursuit in, you know, work or your passion, like the things like music that I'm doing, it's like, it's all the same thing. Excuse me.
yeah.
It's all the same
Well,
shit, I
what
think.
are your I mean, again, I wanted to bring this up, and I've got their
Mhm.
website up right now, Friends of Felix. I'm gonna
Yeah.
order some hats once we get off here, but I've
Mhm.
noticed, like, you're wearing the "You Deserve Your Flowers" hat right now. I've seen the other one, Mental Wellness Club. I mean, this links
Yeah.
to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
First question for you, we'll talk about what these guys are doing, but,
Yeah.
like, what's one of your non-negotiable practices or rituals that, puts your mind in a good spot?
Yeah, I always say, like, for me, it's nothing too profound or poetic or something that you don't already know. Like, for me personally, it's literally the basics. Like, I have to be eating well and I have to
Yeah,
be exercising. I have to have good people in my life that I know want the best for me and, ways to just kind of let it loose and just kind of let go a little bit of the tension and the stress. And for me, because like, I've
yeah,
the highs have been high and the lows have been very low. And I'm not saying that in like a, you know, grandiose, dramatic kind of way. Like I know what it feels like to not feel great and like not, you
yeah,
know, feel like you're doing the right thing or like you're meeting the world in the middle. It's like, but for me, if those struggles are always gonna be there is what I'm trying to say, and it's like,
yeah,
if you can show up as the best version of yourself to combat those struggles, for me, it's being and things like being outdoors, like, I really value being out in the bush, that's how I grew up, and, so yeah, just the basics, man,
yeah.
like, that's it, and
The
talking, like,
basics
getting
work.
it out and having conversations, like, is so key in my life, like, because we all kinda not to keep going and going on this, but, like, we all kind of, um you wanna keep the peace in a lot of ways, and you don't want there to be conflict in your relationships, but I think it's so important to, like, hit things and, like, get after them when they're happening, and, like, if you have something that's going on inside of you, like, it's not a cliche, it's not talk to somebody, like, there's people that will listen to you, like, there is, and there's
Yeah,
people that will care, and so, yeah, good relationships and just the basics,
yeah.
man, that's it.
But the basics are what works. Like, that's the thing. I
Yeah.
feel like we just overcomplicate this stuff. So I was like, yeah, I got to go on a 14-day silent retreat or something. And not that there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with that stuff, but
There isn't.
like, no, I'm like, did I sleep well last night?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that affects more than anything, for
Yeah.
not sleeping well, or to your point, like, putting garbage in our body, we're gonna feel that.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need to do a little bit better on, like, pausing to be like, "Oh, shit, like, I'm kind of spiraling here a little bit," or I feel
Mhm.
stress, and, like, then all of a sudden, all those practices or those principles, like, go out the door when
Yeah.
in reality, it should be, the reverse, really. We need to, like,
Yeah.
double down.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like that with, like I mean, look at my last 2 weeks. It's been just hair straight back, city to city, like, meeting 1,000 people that are gonna either buy into your career or not, based on
Yeah,
your
no pressure,
interactions
right?
with them. Yeah, no pressure at all, and yeah, But it's like, but then you're, like you're meeting so many people, you're flying all over the place, you're not sleeping, you're living out of a hotel, like you're not eating well. And like you said, it's exactly the reverse. Like
Yeah.
I am trying to show up in these situations. I think I do pretty good at it, but like I'm trying to show up in these situations as the best version of myself, but it's such a hard industry to do that. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. Like there's give and take for
Yeah.
every industry and every endeavor, but yeah, it's kind of becomes the reverse, but like you got to do the basics, man.
Well, so we don't have too much time left, but I do want to
No,
let's
for
play
sure.
up with that a little bit because I feel a couple things. One, uh, irrespective of the industry, like we can all relate to kind of high pressure times and like moving our career and our lives forward and stuff like that. So I think it's relatable
Yeah,
to all of us. But
yeah,
selfishly as well, as someone who really, kind of I like you even more now that we've actually connected. But I've obviously really
for sure.
resonated with your music. And the last thing I would wanna see is, like, somehow you burn out or something happens and, we can't have access to that beautiful soul of yours. So, I
Thank
guess my
you.
question is, like, things are moving and, I don't wanna jinx it, of course, but, eh,
Hmm.
I feel like it you're about to strap to the rocket ship pretty soon, and you're
Yeah,
probably feeling some of that.
yeah,
So, with that in mind, what would be kind of the staple practices that'd be like, "You know what, Mitch, like, I've gotta make it like, things are gonna get a bit crazy, the travel's probably gonna continue.
yeah,
I gotta make sure I'm prioritizing, like, these couple things." Like, for you,
yeah.
what's that gonna be?
Preparation, I think, is the first thing that comes to mind. Is like you have to be ready. Like obviously, this business is crazy. It's volatile. It's you don't know what's happening from day to day, week to week. But like preparate, like that's one thing I realized from these trips was like I need to now that I'm home, I need to sit down and be ready for the next one and be like, how am I going to eat well on the road? It's impossible. Like how you
Yeah,
don't have anywhere to cook. Like it's damn near impossible.
yeah,
How am I gonna get into the gym? How am I gonna continue the stable routine of being here at home and take that on the road? And then, try to just surround myself with people that want the best for me and that, you know, will push me. Like, don't get me wrong, I wanna work hard at this and I wanna be pushed and I wanna like,
yeah,
redline it at times. And it's
yeah,
especially in this point in my career with like you're saying, it's gonna start to bottleneck and it's gonna start to get busier and busier and busier. And I just wanna be ready. Like, I wanna be prepared. So
yeah,
that's
I
the
love
one
that.
thing I'll say is preparedness, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you mentioned, which like, what things you really need,
Yeah.
so it's just and I think the other thing too, like, just being kind to ourselves, knowing that,
Mhm.
like you said, like some of this stuff becomes nearly impossible. So like,
Mhm.
okay, well, if I can only do the one thing, then it's gonna be this or something,
Yeah.
or like try like, does that hotel have a decent
Mm.
gym, and like
Mm.
I'm gonna get it in before any of these meetings start, and even if something comes up, like, no, I need 30. This
Yeah.
is my like 30 minutes, like whatever it is,
Yeah.
and just
Well,
having some non-negotiables there.
yeah, on that note too, like, another big thing for me that I can do wherever I'm at is, like, I'm big into meditation and mindfulness, and,
Mm,
if I can just sit, be with myself, and be silent, and close my eyes, and just breathe, and, like,
yeah,
kinda bring it all back to baseline emotionally, stress level-wise, that helps, and that's something you can do anywhere, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Shannon Ella asked me this on the last podcast, like, "How do you prepare for a show?" And I'm just like, "It's not this it's nothing pretty, man. I need space, and I need to be with myself for a minute and think and
yeah,
breathe," you know? So,
yeah.
those
I
things you
love
can
it,
do.
and that's
Yeah.
accessible. Be like,
Yeah,
"What? You're
it's
not
right
traveling
there.
with a giant cold plunge or something?"
Yeah, exactly, yeah,
Right?
yeah. Trying to
Oh,
bring
man.
this yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
So
love it.
last question for you, like,
Mhm.
what are you excited for? Like, what's got you just smiling inside even though, it's getting busy and stuff like that, but, like, what's really got you lit up?
Yeah, I turned 30 this year, so I'm kind of like I feel like I'm at the beginning of the bottom of a new ladder, I always say, you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like your 20s are you're just trying to figure it all out. Now I've got my foundation, but now it's like, okay, well things are happening and like as far as what I'm excited for, it's like I just want to play big shows, man. I just want to play for as many people as I can possibly fit into a room or into a festival ground. So yeah, I'm just kind of trying to just get songs out and play big shows. Simple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've said this a few times now. I feel like you're probably very close to a lot of them, probably closer than what you think. And
Thank you.
you know, what inspires me about you and your story and like just like your aura is just this presence and like you see what happens and of course grounded in some good foundational practices like meditation and stuff like that. And if you're able to hold on to that and those
Hmm.
basics, then,
Hmm.
just like a high performing athlete, it's like we see them
Hmm.
play the game, but there's a
Yeah.
shitload of like recovery in between those games and work
Oh yeah.
and in other industries and business world, it's like we don't do that or we don't think about it as much. So
No,
I'm
no, you
happy
just see
you're
that.
thinking about it.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
I'm just excited to be where I'm at, man, and I've also never been scared of like shooting for the moon in my mind, you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
I don't think there's a ceiling. Obviously this business is tough, man, and it's only few people make it to the quote unquote top, but I believe in myself, I believe in my art, I believe in my ethic, and I just think like given the right opportunities I can do it, man. So that's kind
Yeah.
of how I try to stay in it, you know. So I'm just
Well,
excited.
and just
So overall,
celebrating
just
the
excited.
Just celebrating the micro wins along the way, right? Like
Yeah,
even, the rooms you're in right now and the people that, you're like most people don't have that. And like
yeah,
before that, most people, probably weren't playing shows in Nashville. Like it's
yeah,
just but we forget about that stuff because we see the stadium tours and stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I mean it's coming, but I mean it's
yeah,
it's it's the steps. And if we can enjoy those moments, like first of all, it's just a
yeah,
hell of a lot more pleasurable.
yeah. No,
And yeah, and
I'm
it
very
leads to the
much
next
like
thing.
that, man. Like I'm just like I'm a fan at heart. Like even to this day, you talk about like micro wins, and it's like those are the big wins for me. It's I mean, the age old journey is the destination thing. It's so true. Like being in rooms with, the big names. I'm in rooms with like people from Sony and Warner and Universal and Steve Cody and Jonathan Simkin and all these like legends of the business. And it's like, I go to bed at night and I'm like, holy shit. Like, I can't believe I'm even just spending time with these people. Like, who cares where
Yeah,
it goes after this? Like, this is cool. You know what I mean? So
totally.
I'm so grateful. So grateful.
But I'll flip that back to you. I mean, just because 'cause you're a good humble Canadian, and, A, thanks for being on the show and doing what you
Yeah.
do,
Thank
but,
you.
like, don't never forget I know, you're grateful obviously for the whole journey and the people around you, but on the other side too, you're also giving a lot of people a lot of really good things through your music and your words.
Oh,
And
well, thank you, man. I
I'm sure I
appreciate
can
it.
speak for many that have experienced your
Yeah.
song, but just me myself, I mean, I'm thinking of drives that I've taken to Toronto recently where I've got your music on repeat as I'm going in to speak to a team, and it's like energizing my mind,
That's
and
awesome. I
helping me
love it,
relax.
man. Yeah.
So thanks for that.
Hearing that makes me feel really, really good, man. I mean it like, thank you so much. And I'm glad it connects and that's all you ever want. You know what I mean? As a songwriter, that's all you could ever ask for is like just to hit somebody some way at some point. So it means a lot to me, man. Thank you.
When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying. Or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life, and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.